Welcome to the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. I'm Melisa Lieberman, a fellow IC and business coach. On this podcast, I teach you to become a consistently booked independent consultant without becoming a pushy salesperson or working 24/7. If I can do it, you can too. Listen on to find out how. Welcome to episode 153 of the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. I am Melisa Lieberman, and I'm thrilled you're here today. We're going to be diving into the last portion of the 14 systems that grow a thriving consulting business. So if you haven't caught episodes 151 and 152, no problem. Stick with me. In those episodes, we went over the first 10 of these 14 systems to grow a thriving consulting business. Today, we're going to go over the last 4. So stick with me, listen to these last 4, and then you can circle back to the other 2 episodes to hear the full thing. But this series, these last 3 episodes, including today's, give you the full picture of the 14 systems that will help you to grow your consulting business to the place where you want it to be. See, creating a consulting business myself the hard way, learning all the hard lessons, and also by helping so many other independent consultants to launch and to grow and to scale their businesses. And by looking at all of these consulting businesses, which is what I do day after day, which is what I'm passionate about, I can see the pattern, the common patterns of what makes certain consultants successful and what keeps others struggling, even when they have very similar backgrounds and very similar networks and very similar, what I like to call raw materials that they bring to the table. When you've got 2 consultants who do roughly the same thing, have had a very similar background, and one's thriving and one's struggling, the question that I pose to myself is, what makes up the difference? What makes one consultant successful and the other one keeps them struggling? And it comes down to these 14 systems that I'm sharing with you. And that's why I'm sharing them with you, so that you can pinpoint for yourself in your own business what you might be overlooking or what you might not yet have fully optimized that could be keeping you stuck with creating the results that you're creating right now instead of fueling you to create the results that you want to create, whether they're financial results or the type of schedule you want to be living by, or the type of work you want to be doing, or the type of clients you want to be engaging, the type of impact you want to be making. Whatever it is for you, looking at these 14 systems and figuring out where you've got your biggest opportunity will help you to get to the point where you're reaching those goals that you've set for yourself. So that's why we're here. I'll give you a quick personal update before we dive in. You've been asking what's happening. I don't always share, but now that the book is starting to get a little bit more stable, that project is now in a little bit more of a run maintain mode where I am now focused on promoting the book, which means a lot of speaking, doing a lot of speaking for groups of independent consultants. That's my focus over the next 6 months. Of course, second in priority to delivering for my clients, but really focusing on speaking and getting in front of as many independent consultants as possible. So they're aware of the book, they're aware of this podcast, and ultimately for those consultants who know that leveraging a coach can help them accelerate their results and get where they want to go more effectively, those consultants raise their hand, reach out to me, and become my clients. So that is what I'm focused on here for the first 2 quarters of this year. And also, as usual, on a personal level, mostly taking my boys and my husband to swim meets. My husband's not swimming. He and I are both just, obviously, we're just trying to juggle things, but the boys are still swimming. We're almost finished with the winter season, which is called short course, and they have their state meets here in a couple weeks. They have 2 meets coming up that are kind of qualifying meets. So those are really exciting to see the fruits of all of their labor. I do have to say before we dive in, how much mindset goes into swimming. I mean, just imagining swimming like that every day for 90 minutes, just looking at this black line on the floor of the pool takes some amount of mental stamina. But my middle son has really been struggling with perfectionism and, frustration that he's not always getting his best times every time he swims and trying to overcome that mental block. So I've been applying a lot of my coaching techniques to him, and luckily he's willing to listen. We're still working on implementing all of them, but he's definitely willing to listen. So that's helpful. Anyway, that's what's happening over here. I'm Melisa Lieberman coaching and with in a personal way. But let's dive into those last 4 systems, the last 4 of the 14 systems that will help you to grow your business into a thriving consulting business. Let me walk you through a few things first and foremost. I'll walk you through the first 10 systems that we already talked about. Again, if you've already listened to those episodes, 151 and 152, this will just be a refresher. If you haven't yet listened to them, it'll just give you more context as I tell you about these last 4 systems in the overall 14. And then I'll share with a companion resource, and then we'll dive into each of the last 4 in detail. So I'll just list out the first 10 systems for you that you want to be implementing in your business to grow a thriving consulting business. And the first is defining your 3-year vision and goals. The second is implementing an assessment system. I'm going to tell you in a minute how to make that easier for yourself. Stay tuned for that. Number 3 is defining your compelling service portfolio. Number 4 is establishing your pricing framework. Number 5 is detailing out your business model, your intentional business model. Number 6 is creating a predictable lead generation engine. Number 7 is establishing a high quality sales process and proposal. Number 8 is building an audience awareness system. Number 9 is creating a system to stay top of mind with those ideal clients. And number 10 is turning client delivery into an asset for you and your business in parallel with delivering the results and the value and the outcomes to your clients. So it doesn't have to be either or. It can be client delivery, when done really well, is both a benefit to you and your own business by way of continuously adding to your intellectual property and to your own methodologies and being able to refine how you deliver to clients so it's more effective, both for you, efficient for you to deliver, and impactful for you to deliver, and also so you're constantly improving the speed to which you get results for your clients, the depth of the impact you make for your clients. And that's continuously evolving and improving. So it doesn't have to be either or. It doesn't have to be client delivery benefits my clients and everything else benefits my business. It can be that client delivery, just like everything else we've talked about, benefits both of you. There was more on that in the episode that I just shared, last week's episode. That gives you a little a review and or a preview if you haven't yet listened to it. Okay, so those were the first 10 systems that we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks. And before we dive into the last 4 today, I want to talk with you about a companion resource that I recommend that goes along really well with all 3 of these episodes. And in the bigger picture is a resource that helps you to grow and optimize your business so that it's thriving. I've been sharing the book with you, so obviously you're aware of that. If you aren't aware of that, I'll tell you briefly. You can find it a free download at melissalieberman.com/book. If you would like to buy the paperback, you can get that on Amazon. But the companion resource I want to recommend to you today, in addition to the book, is what I call the IC assessment, the Independent Consultants Assessment. You can find that at icassessment.com. And what it does is it walks you through these 14 systems, helps you to pinpoint exactly where you are right now from a baseline perspective, and then helps you to figure out where you applying your priority will make the biggest impact for the results in your business and what goals you want to achieve. So you can find that at icassessment.com. So the two letters IC for independent consultant, assessment.com. Okay, so with all of that, now let's dive into the first of the four systems we're going to cover today, and that is your money and financial system. This is all about the 11 financial systems that you want to have in place to make a healthy, thriving consulting practice. These are systems like having a revenue plan, having an investment budget, having an expense budget. I'm not going to go through all 11 of them today because that would take probably its own entire series. You can go find all 11 of them listed in the book as a checklist for you to operate against. But that gives you the sense of what we're talking about here. The money and financial system in your business. When you think about yourself as the CFO of your business and what those systems are in place to help you be profitable, to help you manage your cash flow, and to help you have control over your business financial results versus feeling at the mercy of, whatever the client payment schedule is, or whether the client is even paying according to schedule, or what your pipeline looks like, or if you've got gaps in your client roster. So having this system in place will give you so much more peace of mind and ultimately control over the choices that you're making in your business. So let's break this down into two buckets. The first is we'll talk about what this often looks like for consultants, those consultants that don't have a thriving business. And then I'll share with you what I see when I look at thriving consulting businesses and what the difference is. So what it often looks like just by default is a very sporadic attention to money and the financials. It might be sporadic attention in the sense of when quarterly tax estimates are due, or when the annual tax return is due, or when you need to take a draw out of your business, or if you're worried about cash flow. Oftentimes, it can be a very reactive system dealing with money and financials. Most of us don't really love thinking about it. It feels stressful when the number's low. It can almost feel like a fluke when the number is high. If you don't have a healthy practice in place when it comes to money and finances, it can very easily be one of those systems in your business that you avoid because of that a negative emotion and therefore lose control over. And so that's what it often looks like for those businesses that are not thriving, which is a very sporadic, non-routine type of a system, or maybe not even really a system at all, just very reactive. You may have delegated this system. So you might have a bookkeeper. You might have a CPA. You might have both a bookkeeper and a CPA. You might have even a spouse who's handling this. And instead of delegating it, you've abdicated it where you're letting those people handle it so you don't have to worry about it or think about it or deal with the negative emotion around it, which is really not a business owner type of an approach to your money and finances. It is a way of treating it, which is the opposite of being a business owner, and will get you into trouble at some point in running your business if it hasn't already. The other way that I see this being in an unhealthy way as for independent consultants so often is that you're trying to recreate your paycheck in some way. It may be very explicitly, or it may be more subconsciously, where you want to replace what you had been making or would be making in corporate had you stayed. And even expecting that kind of flow where the money is coming in every couple of weeks, what you were used to when you were in corporate. You are not in corporate anymore. A business naturally has money coming in and out. It ebbs and flows. It's not on a cadence of every 2 weeks. And so getting yourself into the headspace and into the practices from a money and financial perspective that help you to see that this is not a paycheck anymore and that you are the CFO in charge of your business can turn it from being one where you're burying your head in the sand to one where you're really leveraging your money and finances as an asset in your business, as something that helps your business to stand apart from others and not one that is something you're trying to avoid. So that leads me to bring you to the next part of this, which is now that we know what a business looks like that is not thriving, now let's talk about what a business that is thriving looks like from a money and financial perspective. The first thing I'll say is you've got routines in place. You've got very well-established routines where you're reviewing your financials. You may still have a bookkeeper and a CPA or even your spouse handling it. That's not the problem. The problem is when you just ignore the finances because you've abdicated it to someone else. In this case, in a thriving business, you've delegated those mechanics to someone else, but you're reviewing the reports at least on a monthly basis, if not every couple of weeks, where you're looking at your accounts receivable. You're looking at your cash flow projections. You're comparing projections to actual. You have a revenue plan where you know exactly what you are planning to sell and how that builds up to your overall goal on a quarterly basis, on a yearly basis, and you're tracking against that. And if you're not on track, you are figuring out and making plans to address the gap versus allowing it to feel like something that feels terrible and therefore avoiding it and not treating it as a true system in your business where you are acting as a CFO who is in charge of all of this. Another aspect of what comprises a healthy, thriving consulting business is having a reserve in place so you can support those peaks and valleys. And you don't feel forced to taking roles that you don't want to take or even considering going back to corporate because you're worried about runway and where your owner draw is going to come from. You've gotten to a place where you've mentally and physically separating what you're getting paid from your overall business financials. Those are two different things. You're not running a business where you're taking all the money and that's your paycheck. You're running a business where you should have great margins for this type of business, but a portion of that is your owner draw. And there is a portion set aside for investing in your business and paying expenses and being able to support owner draw even when revenue isn't coming in. Do you see the difference there? The other thing that is important when you're building out your money and financial system in your business is incorporating a healthy money mindset into the process. When you're thinking about money in a high quality business owner type way versus in a lower quality employee based way, there will be a very different set of results as a reflective of those mindsets. So it's something you want to be aware of and have a system in place to uncover where those mindsets might be holding you back and rebuild them, renovate them, revisit them, all the re's, in order to get you to the place where you're thinking as a thriving consulting business owner instead of the way you had been thinking in corporate, which was appropriate for that environment, but not appropriate for this one. And so, as I mentioned before, there are 11 financial systems that are really important for you to include in your business and make sure all of them are addressed. And so I would recommend that you go and grab the book. Again, you could get a free copy at melissalieberman.com/book, or you can go grab it on Amazon if you like the printed paper version like I do, and go look at all 11 of those to see what you might be missing so that you've got a well-rounded financial system in place for your business and you're treating your business like a business instead of just a different way to generate a paycheck for yourself. Okay, that was system number 11 out of 14. Let's move on to number 12. And if that sounds confusing, we are now on part 3 of a 3-part series. So the first 10, if for somehow you jumped into the middle of this episode, the first 10 systems are in episodes 151 and 152. So now I just covered number 11. Number 12 is what I call the WOB plus WIB time management system. So what that means is balancing working on your business, WOB, with working in your business, client delivery, WIB. WOB, WIB, time management system. Pretty straightforward. This is your intentional plan for balancing working on your business with client delivery so you do not create revenue peaks and valleys. What this often looks like is very reactive. We land a client, we get bogged down in client delivery, we don't look up early enough, and then we're left with the end of an engagement and no pipeline in sight. So we end up taking whatever we can get that comes across our desk next. And this happens over and over and over again. And sometimes quarters, sometimes years go by, and you're not doing the type of work you would love to be doing, likely more strategy or advisory type work. You're not getting paid at the level you could be being compensated for the work that you're doing. And you don't feel like you have as much control as you could in your business. And it's because I call it the cycle of regret. It's because you haven't intentionally put a system in place to balance working on your business with client delivery. And you're serving at the mercy of whatever your client's schedule is and not allocating time to work on your business, especially in this situation where you feel like you've got a lot of runway, where you might have a client engagement that you know is consuming most, if not all, your capacity for the foreseeable future, and you consistently delay and defer working on your business. And as a result, you're not building your brand, you're not creating a reputation, and you're certainly not creating a pipeline for yourself. So that's what it looks like when it's not thriving. Let's shift into what it looks like when it is thriving. What it looks like when it is thriving is that you have an intentional, ideal schedule for yourself on what it looks like to balance working on your business with working in your business, where you've set aside time every single week to work on your business, whether it's brand building, whether it's thought leadership, whether it's pipeline building. You know what the bare minimum is that you need to always complete, regardless of how utilized you are. That you've set aside the time in your calendar and you're following through with the time you've set aside. That doesn't mean 100% of the time. None of us are perfect. But what if you got to 80%? 80% of the time you're following through on this intentional, well thought out plan that's meant to focus in on building your brand, building your reputation, building your network, keeping a healthy pipeline. That's what's really important here. In order for you to have a business, instead of you just basically creating a job for yourself. If you're not doing this, then what you're doing is just working for a paycheck in the sense of a consulting fee, and you're doing it without some of the benefits of being a full-time employee, like insurance, for example. Don't do that. You didn't come out here and take a risk and do something that most people aren't willing to do by becoming a consultant for you to just create a harder job for yourself. You came here to build a business. And so it's imperative that you spend time working on that business, no matter how busy the client delivery schedule is, by finding new ways to be more efficient with client delivery, by not pricing yourself in an hourly or time-based way so that you're not having to choose between working on your business and generating in billable hours. And putting the systems in place for yourself that where you know what the ideal schedule is and that you are following through even when you're tempted not to. So that's what the 12th system is, that working on your business plus working in your business balance. The 13th system that we're going to talk about today is the business owner mindset system. If you've listened to this podcast for any period of time, including probably just today's episode, but certainly if you've listened to more than just one episode, it won't take very many episodes for you to know that mindset is one of the key ingredients to running a successful independent consulting business. And that's why it's its own system. If you read the book, which have these 14 steps laid out very specifically, you will find that there is mindset in every single chapter. So 14 chapters of mindset, including one, which is number 13, which is fully dedicated to mindset. It is the difference, honestly, between success and struggle. And I will tell you, I never realized that until, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago, I thought you could work harder. I thought you could just be smarter. I thought you could just figure out find the best strategy, watch as many YouTube videos as possible, find the best strategy, work as hard as you could, and implement it, and you would be successful if you were smart. There's a lot of us who think that way. And for a lot of us, we've been able to grind through and be successful in that way. But I will tell you that having an aligned mindset that will help you to see things from a different perspective, from a different self-identity, from a different vantage point as a business owner, as compared to what you've learned and how you were cultivated in corporate, just like I was and am still unraveling to this day in different ways. That is one of the most important ingredients to success. This is not a nice to have. Creating a business owner mindset is not a nice to have. It's not something that happens naturally. It is something that requires intentional and repeated focus. And so what this looks like if you don't have a business owner mindset system in place, you might be at the place where I'm at right now. You know it's important. You might be there agreeing with me. And if that's the case, my question to you is, do you have practical ways? Do you have routines built in? If we were to look at your calendar, do you see the priority of that business owner mindset system reflected on your calendar? What it often looks like is that even those consultants, and it might be you too, that know that business owner mindset is important, don't necessarily know what that means and how to apply it in a practical way. So that's how it looks in some cases for consultants who don't have a business that is thriving at the level that it could be at their potential. For other consultants, it's completely ignored or resisting. So that's great. That's such a, it's kind of a fluffy thing, not that important. I'll kind of do it when I need to, or it's just something that I kind of address as I go, but not a critical path. That's what it looks like. Those types of thought processes when you don't have a solid, impactful, effective business owner mindset system in place. So let's look at the other side of that. What does it look like to have a successful, effective business owner mindset? It looks like you having a repeatable practice, mindset practice. It looks like you having the practical tools to shift your mindset, to understand where your mindset is holding you back, where it's sabotaging you. You see it on your calendar. You have time, business owner mindset time, business owner thinking time, whatever you want to label it. Business owner self-identity time. Doesn't mean that you have hours dedicated to that, but repeatedly 15 minutes a day. Just like you would exercise your body, you're exercising your mind and shifting it and figuring out, where are you holding yourself back? Where did old thought patterns that served you well in your old life, where are those holding you back now? And it looks like you making a noticeable shift in your self-identity, that you're thinking like a business owner, and that you're ultimately creating the results that you want, the money you want, working the schedule you want, taking on the types of clients you want, being able to turn away or refer away the clients you don't want, and having the nature of work that you want. all of this, at the heart of it, rests on you having an aligned business owner mindset to support that. Okay, let's move on to number 14 of 14 systems to grow a thriving consulting business. And that is what I call the keep it going system. What often happens is we focus in on something like, oh, I need to improve my pipeline. And so we really focus in on that and we give it some attention. And then we get distracted by something else like client delivery. And so we kind of drop that ball, and almost as if we were juggling a bunch of balls, we drop it and then we have to come back and pick it up later and like get it back into motion again. This is not what you want for your business. You want an ability to keep the balls in the air, all 14 of them. And it doesn't have to be overly complicated or overwhelming or unsustainable. It doesn't have to be a pass or fail situation or a perfectionist situation, which it oftentimes consultants fall into those traps. What it does need to look like, if you want a thriving, growing consulting business where you're reaching the goals that you've set for yourself and you're feeling the joy of